Hey, everybody, welcome back.
Welcome to our discussion of something that is a surprise to Russ.
Yes, we are discussing the Final Fantasy guy.
Oh, you mean Nobuo Uematsu?
That's the guy that I mean.
do mean
I
Uematsu.
want to be respectful to him, and so I'm not going to try and say his name so I don't butcher it. We are joined, of course, it is Russ and I. We are joined by Chris Taylor, our musical expert.
Nobuo Uematsu.
That guy. And we're also joined by the princess. She doesn't want to say hi.
She doesn't feel like saying hi right now, and that's okay.
That is so.
We respect everyone's level of comfort here.
People who have been watching or listening to Home on the RNG for a very long time actually do know the princess. Her laughter shows up in bloopers of the earliest episodes because it started as a video project, and she was our camera woman for the first several episodes. She also ran the Name That Game that we played with music. So her voice shows up in that one. So Princess is returning home to the RNG.
I'm famous.
We used to be a video podcast, and then too many people died looking at my image on screen, and we decided that audio was the better way to go.
It's certainly less work.
I've killed more people than Sadako from the Ring.
It was a
So,
it was a safety concern eventually.
yeah, it really was.
So, Chris,
Oh, hello.
take us on a magical journey discussing the works of a great man.
Of a great man. I actually just found out that the kanji of the Nobuo actually means man. It's just one of
So
those.
his name is Man.
His name is man.
I can do that one.
Apparently it's man, and then Uematsu is pine tree plant rising.
Man, Pie Tree Plant
Fun.
Rising. Okay.
I say we just call him Guy.
Guy Fieri. He could get us a macaroni chicken blast.
Guy Uematsu. I like it. So yeah, well, any fan of video game music is not going to need me to introduce Nobuo Uematsu. He is the legendary
He was legendary.
Yeah. Composer of pretty much all of the early Squaresoft stuff. Believe it or not, Final Fantasy was his 16th composition.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy is like one of the first video games ever made. How is that possible?
So was he doing composition for like those racing games they did before Final Fantasy?
Rad Racer.
Rad
Yes,
Racer, yeah.
He did.
Okay.
He was the Rad Racer guy, also King's Knight, also some stuff on the PC 8801 or whatever Japanese computer that even my level of obscurity enjoyment is still a dark area for me because it's hard to find that stuff. But yeah, so he was already kind of legendary by the time Final Fantasy 1 came out, which he composed, and then composed all the rest of them up until 10, which he kind of split with some other people, and then he said goodbye. And
Did he hear that Titus laughing in Final Fantasy X and was like, I can't do this anymore. We're done.
You know what, though? Composing 10 games in a series, that's a good run. Like,
It's a good run.
that really is a time to consider, like, do I ever want to work on anything else for the rest of my life? Because this
Yeah.
is the time.
I mean,
Does it really count as a series, though? They're not really related.
That's kind of fair. I mean, I make the comparison between it and Dragon Quest all the time, where Dragon Quest keeps refining what works, and thematically they are fairly similar, whereas Final Fantasy reinvents itself every time.
yeah. And Nobuo is slightly less racist, so that's good too.
Slightly.
I say slightly. He worked on Square's Tom Sawyer.
Oh my.
Look at that game before you say
Oh,
he's
dear.
not.
Well,
Before
did
you say
he-
he's 0% racist, look at that game.
Did he just do the music?
Yeah, he just did the music.
Does the music contain no words?
No, but again, it's through complicitness of
Okay.
Sure.
being in a
Yeah.
game that is as racist as Square's Tom Sawyer. This is going in a direction I didn't even think it was going to go. We're not even out of the introduction yet. This is why I probably should take notes ever. So yeah, he is, again, a legendary composer who composed for the bulk of the Final Fantasies through the 80s and 90s. And yeah, he utilized a very elaborate style of basically taking some of the most beautiful songs you'll ever hear, both operatic and simply, pastoral or, just plain old good classical style orchestral music, and then mixing it in with a little bit of good old 70s like prog rock, your Emerson, Lake and Palmer or whatever. And then, just kind of like taking all that, and he was also a master of what we call leitmotif, which is where you take a song and then you make another song, but you add a little bit of reference to that first song.
Okay, I noticed that a lot from Final Fantasy VI.
Exactly,
Right?
and
Those
Final Fantasy IV.
those character themes are woven throughout the game.
Yep. And the first few notes you hear from the Red Barons flying over to Mysidia in that song, the Red Wings theme, you'll hear that in the Overworld theme. You'll also hear it in certain dramatic scenes, especially ones involving people who are like close to Cecil and in the Kingdom of Baron. Like all of those things, that's called in musical terms a leitmotif. But Nobuo was one of the people who did it best. He absolutely was great about taking a central theme and kind of building this whole soundtrack around it. And that sort of became his legacy. So yeah, he did that for all the games, and then he just kind of fluffed off. So I think we're just going to talk about the first 9 or 10 Final Fantasies, right?
However you want to do this is how we're doing it.
Well, we've already brought up Square's Tom Sawyer, so I think we've exhausted all the extracurricular stuff. And, of course, we mentioned Rad Racer, which is inevitable.
Rad Racer and Tom Sawyer, really the cornerstones of any musical discussion.
Yeah. I really just kind of feel like if we just talk about our favorites, that would be cool, because I don't want to go game by game, because it's going to be a lot of the same story.
Did he write the lyrics to the opera that Celie sings in Final Fantasy VI?
Yes.
Okay. At least the Japanese lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. So the story there, is that he wrote the opera scene there. It kind of became this runaway hit that I think even he wasn't expecting. Because if you think about it, it's a comedy scene. It's a person who doesn't sing being forced to sing in order to fool a kidnapper.
Yeah. Setzer didn't really age well.
No.
Looking back.
As a character.
He did not survive the Me Too movement.
didn't survive
This is
Me
why
Too.
Setzer does not have his own game now.
No.
Exactly. So he's a very thirsty man and was easily thwarted by somebody who can't sing opera and, probably didn't look like too much like that other lady.
We never get to see, by the way.
We get to see a picture of her in Ozer's house later, and it is the same sprite, but...
Okay. Yeah, but still.
Yeah, still.
I would have liked to have met her. I
Right?
think Maria needs some agency of her
Why
own.
doesn't Maria appear in the game? Do you think Celeste might have been Maria this whole time?
Oh, maybe she was.
That's
maybe
why
she
she
can
can
sing. And
sing.
she had a
Yeah.
She moonlighted. Have you seen in Pixel Remaster what they've done with that scene?
Not yet. I'm
I've
playing it right
heard.
now.
Oh,
I've heard of it,
my.
though.
Yes.
Here's the thing, though.
Why didn't they just do that with the whole game?
Well, that's what I was thinking after I saw it.
Yeah.
That's probably
no,
why it took so much longer to come out than the other ones.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is from what I've heard, the
3D
opera scene is the
scene.
2D HD.
They do the 2D HD.
Nice.
of
like
the opera
Octopath
scene.
Traveler, but just for that scene and not the whole game, which seems like a waste.
And yeah,
Although
people...
they did it for Live Alive or Live Alive.
Live Alive, which I
As it
didn't know
turns out.
I was saying
I didn't know
wrong
it was
this
Live
whole
Alive,
thing.
yeah.
I've been saying Live Alive since I heard of it, and then they come out and like, we're doing Live Alive, and I went, crap, I have to like take all our episodes offline now.
So that opera scene, it got translated into English, although there was a version in Italian. It's supposed to be Italian. The title of it,
operas are.
Mezzo Aria Cantare, whatever, is Italian. But they actually what they did with that is translated it and performed it in 7 different languages for the Pixel remaster. And Nobuo heard them all, and apparently he just cried because he loved hearing that song in all these languages he didn't recognize. Because historically it was always in English or Japanese or occasionally Italian.
Which is a very big change from the Dragon Quest composer not wanting his music released outside of Japan.
No.
Yeah.
He got his own copyrights. We're going to talk about him, I guess, later. So the opera scene, that was a huge, huge moment. And again, it was born out of a comedic scene of a lady trying to fool a thirsty man and an octopus. So,
I love the character themes for 4 and 6.
yes.
I love them so much.
Yeah.
And I think they're utilized very well.
Yeah, one of the most clever things I think he ever did, going back to 6, because, I feel like 6 is kind of the pinnacle of what he achieved. But, that's arguable, of course. But anyways, the fact that the ending to Final Fantasy VI is a compilation of all of the character themes woven together in one big work, that is super hard to do as a composer. and like he pulled it off.
Especially when those themes go from like I'm trying to think like Cyan's theme with its very strong Eastern sound to like Go-Go's theme, which is carnival circus music.
Yeah, Go-Go's theme is very nautical sounding to me.
It also sounds a little bit like Mysidia from Fuller, just in terms of like the goofy bounce back and forth.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, it's very eccentric. Which, yeah, by the way, I think that Nobuo like wrote such interesting like comedic themes, like the Mysidia theme, that Go-Go's theme, and like the confusion theme in FF6 as well, which is when you're talking to the weird old man and the next to the belt.
Yes. Yeah.
That theme comes up several times in that game. I never thought of it as having a name before, but
yeah, I forget what it's called. It's called something like what, or some confusion type of name.
It always makes me slightly uncomfortable, and I don't know why. There's something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he also like really had an interest in world music, so that's why he liked to incorporate like kind of different nationalities like themes into like his characters and stuff. Because there's honestly, if you look at it, there's no reason why Cyan, or Cayenne as he's called in the Japanese version.
Thank you. I don't know who the Cyan person is.
Oh, yes. We're back to Jeff Can't Pronounce Things. My favorite game.
By the way,
there's not a samurai named Cyan.
Well, it's...
The color is cyan, and it's spelled the same.
What I love is that, like, okay, so because of the character limit that had to be imposed on Final Fantasy VI due to data restrictions, Ted Woolsey was, of course, forced to make a lot of decisions as to what kind of dialogue to cut.
Oh, Ted Woolsey.
And when they came across his character Cayenne, which is like, 17 or 18 letters in English, he was like, well, cyan is a word. I can just shorten it to Cyan and just have it be that. And like, he's already blue, but like, I think his blue is more like a periwinkle. It's not actually cyan.
I will now think of him as Periwinkle from now on.
I would love to name him Periwinkle. Periwinkle the Samurai.
I mean, we could call him Perry. That would fit.
And the thing about it, though, is that what I love about the Doma theme and stuff is that you don't really think of it as being any kind of, like, Eastern influence until you hear that music. Mm-hmm. And then it's just no question.
Yeah, Doma does not look like
unlike
Eastern.
Unlike Fabul in Final Fantasy IV, which is all karate dudes that, with their shirts off and stuff. Except for the king, who just looks like a king.
The king.
I don't know.
And they're still in like a Western castle.
Yeah, yeah, they're in a West. There's no reason for them to be karate dudes, and all of them get killed like in the first wave of attacks. It's like
we're the legendary warriors. Don't test us because we'll fail.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, that full bull theme goes hard.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. I'm trying not to hum too many themes.
That's when you reach for the remote, like volume down, volume down, volume down. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's like the Super Nintendo era of his stuff, and of course, it's impossible to talk about him too without going over the battle themes of the different games. That is, I think, his pride and joy. And again, where I think a lot of the two things that I think of when I think of a Nobuo battle theme is Emerson, Lake and Palmer, just some like 70s, like, prog rock, like, 9 keyboards at once kind of like song. And then like bullfighting.
Okay.
For some reason, I hear like this, not flamenco, but what's the bullfighting music called? Anyway, I'll get it wrong if I don't look at my phone. But yeah, I really like the battle theme. What do you guys think?
I don't like the battle theme from Final Fantasy 1 as much.
Really?
It doesn't feel like it fits for me.
Gotcha. What I love about it is that I learned it on bass, and it has this rundown like this. It scales down, and it's impossible to play. So I think that's why people don't cover it.
I think my favorite is 4.
Yeah.
4 is so good.
4 is great. I also like, I should say what I don't like about 8 is that I don't really like Squall's battle theme that much, but I like Laguna's, obviously.
Yeah.
Laguna's is so iconic, and the amount of time you get to play as him is so small. You don't get to hear it.
It always felt like a relief to be playing as Laguna after playing a drip like Squall.
I feel like the battle theme in 8 is I mean, he's like a military academy student, so I feel like his battle theme is very militaristic sounding to me. And then Laguna, being the like wandering journalist, is like fun and peppy and upbeat.
Yeah, it's like a sports theme almost.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and I like that that Nobuo like would make that separation when it comes to like that kind of stuff.
Because as I understand it, 8 was in an earlier draft. It was split between Squall and Laguna much more in terms of the story. You would really be playing half as Squall and half as Laguna in the Laguna's part.
Could we just play the Laguna game? I
God,
would play
yeah.
that.
Let's get a
They picked the wrong one to expand.
They should have made like a Crisis Core version of like Final Fantasy VIII where it's just Laguna.
Yeah.
That would have been great. That's a good segue too, like going from like Super Nintendo to like PlayStation. I really think that another thing that he did that really, really effectively in going to Final Fantasy VII was to throw in a little bit more of an edge on the music, including like the Those Who Fight and Those Who Fight Further, battle and boss battle themes, especially with like the really cool like rising the like rising melody of Those Who Fight, dun 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 dun, and then another one joins dun 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 dun. Yeah, try not to hum too much.
Join us next week for Chris Sings the Soundtrack.
Yeah.
I do it too. And then of course Those Who Fight Further coming in with that chuggy electric guitar, which we get to hear for the first time. Well, you hear like the Super Nintendo like equivalent of it in like Final Fantasy VI and whatnot. But yeah, it was such a cool moment to hear like something that actually sounds like like real metal guitars and stuff.
Did he do the Jekt boss battle theme?
I think that was someone else.
Okay, I'm glad I didn't start talking about how much I love it then.
Yeah, I haven't beaten Final Fantasy X myself, and I haven't spent any like time being obsessed with it like the others. So yeah, I honestly am Googling it right now.
That theme, so yeah, you play through Final Fantasy X, and for me personally, because I'm musically agnostic, not a lot of the soundtrack sticks out to me about 10. It's fine, I don't have problems with it. But then you get to that Jekt battle at the end, and it's like, we just changed genres. Because this is flat out heavy metal, and it rules. What happened? Did they bring in some other guy just to do this one song? It does not match thematically with the rest of the game at all.
Somebody was just joking about Rammstein.
That was me stalling for time so you could look it up.
Yeah. So apparently Uematsu did compose the song, but the performer is Bill Muir, who, I don't know, is that somebody from Rammstein? I don't know who Bill Muir is.
I think he did Politically Incorrect.
I wish.
Let's not talk about him.
He also starred in the classic movie Cannibal Women in the Avocado Jungle of Death.
I can sing the 7th Saga song while we...
Oh, wow. Okay.
I would love it if you didn't.
Even better. Bill Muir was the frontman for X Till I Die X, all one word, which is Till I Die, a straight-edge hardcore punk band that toured Japan from 1998 to 2002 in an attempt at popularizing the straight-edge subculture.
Ooh.
So the Battle of Jekt is a straight-edge dude that was in Japan at the time.
Nice.
But
composed by Uematsu.
Composed by Uematsu, yes. And just goes to show the man had range.
Yeah, that's incredible range.
Yeah.
To go from Mysidia to Jekt.
In only 8 years? Wow.
Those games used to come out like hotcakes.
They really did.
Yeah, now it's, God, when did 15 come out? And we're still waiting on 16?
15 came out in 2016. Yeah.
Now, what I like about 15 is that most of it was actually composed by Yoko Shimomura, who is the composer of things like Street Fighter II, Super Mario RPG, and all the Mario RPGs. She did like most of Kingdom Hearts as well.
Wow.
And she's a legendary composer in her own right. But yeah, she did like 80% of Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, I'm glad I had something going for it.
I've never touched 15. I'll have to play it at some
and
point.
You missed out on all of the butt poking.
Was that a euphemism?
Boys poking each other while camping at night in the butt.
So, Uematsu, huh?
Yeah. By the way, speaking of other things that he did, and speaking of prog rock, so he also, outside
Sorry, we
of
were
Final
talking about
Fantasy,
prod rock.
prod rock, gotcha.
I'm making a
That is
finger-poking
different
gesture.
thing.
You can't see it, but
But
You can see it. But yeah, like in 2006, he composed the soundtrack for Blue Dragon, which was the less popular
I played Blue Dragon.
the less popular collaboration between Enix people and Square people that it didn't do so well as like Chrono Trigger. But anyway, what he did in that, and I feel like this is like I think a personal victory for him. I don't feel like this was anything other than him just getting to fulfill a dream. But one thing that Uematsu was always really into was the music of Deep Purple. We know that they did Smoke on the Water, but they actually came out with lots and lots of other songs, every single one better than Smoke on the Water, which is not a good song. Yeah, he always admired them to the extent that Rad Racer's Japanese name is Highway Star, which is one of their bigger hits. So their vocalist for their most popular period is Ian Gillan, and yeah, he's the guy who sang Smoke on the Water, Highway Star. You know, you probably know most of the stuff that he did if you've ever heard the band. So, and like if you listen to like some of Deep Purple and you hear like some of the organ work of John Lord, you're like, oh, that sounds like I've heard that in a Final Fantasy before. So like you can trace a line between Deep Purple and Final Fantasy music. In 2006, he wrote the music for Blue Dragon, including a boss theme, which he actually has. It actually has a full vocal part with lyrics sung by Ian Gillan.
Aww.
Nice.
Yeah, so he got to work with one of his heroes, and I feel like there's no reason Ian Gillan would have been in a video game otherwise. I think that was literally just Uematsu being like, oh, we have a budget, do we? Well.
My Deep Purple cover band is called Light Cyan.
Nice.
That was wonderful. I'm laughing so hard right now.
I'm going to edit that
It was
out.
the funniest thing that I've ever heard in my entire life.
I'm just going to cut that out.
Okay.
Nobody will know it happened. I might put in some laughter. Hold on. I was going for that button.
I hope this becomes a sound effects podcast. That's what we need.
We need some shallow periwinkle.
Oh.
Yes.
That's a good band name, actually. So what were we talking about?
Uematsu.
Uematsu. We were talking about, battle themes. We talked about...
The
Blue
classic
Dragon. What
victory
has he
jingle.
done?
Huh?
The victory jingle.
The victory jingle, which goes all the way back to the first game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. What about the victory jingle?
I like that it's kind of the one piece that has stuck throughout.
Yeah.
That didn't get reinvented upon. And it even shows up in Advent Children as like a ringtone.
Mm-hmm.
So
really?
it's to the point, yeah.
That's funny.
There's a fight sequence in Advent Children, and then all of a sudden you hear the victory tone, and it turns out, oh, fight's over. Got a phone call.
I like in Final Fantasy VII Remake how sometimes Barrett, after a battle, just sings it. Dun, da, 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 da.
That's brilliant.
Neptune also sings it in Hyper
I don't want to hear about
Hyper
Hyperdimension Neptunia. You need to shut your mouth. We don't talk about that.
until we review it.
Never. Veto.
I think Kenji Ito worked on one of the Hyperdimension Neptunia games. Anyway.
I think we're getting far afield here. So, in ramping up, what else do we want to touch upon?
What did he do besides Blue Dragon after Final Fantasy?
Well, let me see if there's anything on Wikipedia here. No.
Seventh Saga. When I see their happy faces smiling back at me.
Yeah, I mean, he did stuff like Lost Odyssey.
Lost Odyssey is great. He did Lost Odyssey.
Yeah, and
It's a kind of a forgotten classic, really.
It's so good. I remember when we tried to get it running on our laptops.
along with Kenji Ito, he worked on Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory.
Oh, great. Oh, dear. So he's come a long way, baby.
Yeah. He also did a couple of songs for a game that is near and dear to my heart. It's another Compile Heart Idea Factory game called Fairy Fencer F.
I've played some Fairy Fencer F.
I played through all 3 story arcs of the
Wow.
Dark Force Advent version of it.
Okay.
I actually quite love that game. Fang is one of my favorite male protagonists of all time. But yeah, he did stuff like that and just like lots of lots of like mobile stuff. I don't know. He
Didn't
supposedly
they also get Amano to do art for Fairy Fencer F?
Yeah, he did like the cover art and like
Okay.
a couple of pieces for it, but that's about it.
Okay.
The rest of it is just Idea Factory style
Okay.
anime.
Okay.
Also, he's overseen the soundtracks to all the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters that are out. And one interesting one that I actually reviewed recently was called Dungeon Encounters, which is the most generic name in the
Yikes.
world.
That sounds like a dating sim.
I was going to
Yeah.
say Dungeon Encounters is like, I don't want to have an encounter like that in a dungeon.
Well, see, you're dating dungeons as
Oh,
personified
like a
as-
light novel. Like I was reincarnated as a vending machine in another world.
Exactly. All of the
Nice.
dungeons are personified, and so you get to pick which dungeon you like the most.
Like Sword Boyfriend or whatever it's called.
Hatful Boyfriend, too. Well, they're just pigeons
Well, those
in
are
that
pigeons. I'm talking about the one where they're swords.
one. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, like, so this game came out. It's Square's version of a hardcore dungeon crawler a la like Wizardry or something. And it's a weird game because somebody was like, they must have asked somebody like, okay, what's a dungeon crawler like? I don't know. I don't have the internet. Describe it to me. And they're like, okay, well, it's a dungeon where you go through and it's really, really hard and there's no map. So you have to like draw the map on graph paper. And they're like, okay, a game on graph paper. Got it. And so they made this game where you're literally walking around on a grid like you're on graph paper.
Oh.
And you
So they
fight.
went too literal.
Yeah, they went way literal with it. It is very hard. It's got permadeath. It's a wacky, crazy game. And the soundtrack is by Nobuo, and it's so minimal. It's like there's a hub town that has a town theme that sounds just like one of the old original Final Fantasy town themes. Which, by the way, Nobuo, amazing at town themes. And since he did the original Saga, that's actually one of my favorite town themes, was the one he did for original Final Fantasy Legend. But yeah, it's a great town theme, and then you get into the dungeon and it's like nothing. And then you get into a fight and it's just two chuggy electric guitars just going. No drums, no bass, no keyboards.
Why do you bring him in and not let him just do wall-to-wall sound?
I don't know. It's such a mystery. Like, his soundtrack for Dungeon Encounters is a mystery to me.
He also did Final Fantasy Legend 2, right? Did he do Legend 2?
He did some of Legend 2,
Okay.
and plus they reused some of the music for Legend 2,
Yeah.
like the title theme.
It's
but
just
that
my
was,
favorite Game Boy soundtrack.
It was
of anything.
him and then Kenji Ito, and I don't remember the balance between them. And then Legend 3 was Ryuji Sasai, which is the Final Fantasy Mystic Quest composer. So all three games had different
My
composers.
favorite Final Fantasy, Mystic Quest.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no Nobuo in Mystic Quest, and yet we have mentioned it.
Mystic Quest has got the good heavy metal soundtrack,
Yes.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryuji Sasai is a legend. We can talk about him any day.
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for our Uematsu discussion for now. We may come back and talk about him in the future. There are more
Sure.
Final Fantasy games coming, but I thought it
Final
might
Fantasy
be...
16 will be out one day. Not that he'll
that
necessarily
he'll be-
work on it, but...
He probably won't. I hope it's the guy that did 14 that does Lahi.
Oh, I think I heard something about that.
Yeah.
Somebody
okay.
with 14 is involved in 16.
I don't
think
know
it's the
for sure.
producer of like the game.
Oh,
like
okay.
the game 14 is involved in 16.
Well, the composer of 14 is a character, and I love him. I'll have to show y'all something after the podcast.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you
Yeah.
for listening.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
Seventh heaven.
Oh, God.
When I see their smiling faces. When we did the Seventh Saga review, every time I think of Seventh Saga, I sing Seventh Saga. When I see their happy faces smiling back at me. Seventh Saga. I know there's no greater feeling than the love of a family.
I think you missed your calling.
Where can you go when the world don't treat you right? The answer is home. That's the one place that you'll find.
You know, I never thought of myself as a
Seven
masochist,
Saga.
and yet I signed up for this over and
Seven
over
Saga.
again. Anyway, Russ has now been muted so that we can begin the episode.